As easily as tossing off a dark cloak to reveal part of his true self. Another one, Karl Rove went before an energy industry group the day after the midterm elections and declared this, quote, "Climate is gone." In our fourth story, it's not enough that climate change legislation has no chance of passing in the next Congress. Republican climate science deniers will hit their apex by holding hearings on what they claim is the scientific fraud of climate change. You may recall that the Environmental Protection Agency under the Obama administration recently did something that is potentially significant on this issue, that is to classify carbon dioxide as a pollutant, which could then be regulated. But Republicans plan to counter that by trying to strip the EPA of its authority. And according to Newsweek, the GOP will hold high-profile hearings to investigate the quote-unquote scientific fraud behind global warming or climate change. Congressman Barton, Republican of Texas, the BP apologist, has already made his bid to become chairman of the House Energy Committee. He sent a letter to incoming House freshmen reading in part, quote, "As ranking member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce, I have led the charge against radical cap-and-trade legislation." But that sounds almost passé compared to the gusto of Mr. Rove. The day after the election, Rove was the keynote speaker at a conference and trade show of natural gas industry insiders. Rove told the Marcellus Shale Natural Gas Conference, quote, "Climate is gone." And he said that there was no need to worry about hydraulic fracturing, that it would be placed under federal regulation, because it wouldn't be. Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, is a kind of drilling. More on the emerging nightmare of fracking in a moment. The reason that fracking is not regulated by the federal government? This guy, then Vice President Cheney, in 2005, with his allegiance, as ever, to his old pal Halliburton. Mr. Cheney made sure that fracking would be exempt from environmental oversight laws on the federal level. All part of the Bush-Cheney Energy Policy Act. Let's bring in the director of the documentary Gasland, Josh Fox. Josh, thanks for your time tonight.
Hi, Keith. It's great to be here.
For someone who may not have heard of fracking, or may have heard it and not really understood what it means, give us the simple explanation of what it is first.
Well, hydraulic fracturing is a new form of drilling for natural gas that forces down millions of gallons of water laced with toxic chemicals, and this brew is about 600 different toxic chemicals at such high pressures that it actually breaks apart the rock where natural gas is trapped in these deep reserves, and that brings the gas to the surface. The problem is that these chemicals, fracking fluids, are turning up in people's water supply, as is the natural gas from those formations, allowing people to light their water on fire. We're currently in the largest natural gas drilling campaign in history. It's going on in 34 states. It's proposed for places like the New York City watershed. 50% of New York State, 65% of Pennsylvania is at risk. And what Karl Rove is doing is he's pushing this natural gas drilling campaign on people, even though, as you see right here, there are very, very destructive effects for water supplies. We have a very limited amount of water, and once you contaminate an aquifer, you can't go back. You can't clean it. You have to treat that water at the surface. So even if you get 5 or 10 years of natural gas out of these unconventional gas plays, which is this huge push that T. Boone Pickens and Rove and others are trying to push forward, you're going to be at a net loss of energy and in money at the end of the day in a very short time when you have to clean up all of America's water.
So, I mean, ultimately, we're headed towards, because of this, every supply of water looking something like that river in Cleveland in 1970, where there was actually a blaze in the middle of the damn thing?
It's an enormous amount of territory. You're talking about huge areas in the Northeast, and I think that's why this is a big story right now, because it affects so many people's water supply. This drilling, like you said, since the Safe Drinking Water Act exemption, it's skyrocketed all throughout the West, and you're seeing these kinds of reports really add up right now. Thousands of cases of contamination. In my film, Gasland, we document that. I traveled to 24 states. The film covers about 10 different states, and it also really exposes the plan to deregulate this industry. And this is something that the Obama administration hasn't changed, and it seems that Karl Rove is telling the polluters not to worry. But if you're interested in consuming clean water in America, I would say it's time to worry, and it's also time to get active on this. And you can see those drilling areas at our website, gaslandthemovie.com. There's a map right on the front page there.
So essentially what we're dealing with here is, with all the great success of offshore drilling, we basically have an onshore version of unregulated offshore drilling going on in this country, all across this country?
Yeah, this is a nightmare. This is onshore drilling. And I just did a swing throughout Texas, and a lot of people are facing this in Pennsylvania. I'm facing this myself. I started this documentary, remember, when I got a natural gas lease in the mail in the Upper Delaware River Basin, which is part of that watershed area that provides water to New York City and Philadelphia. People in Texas, their water is so contaminated, the air around them, because the fracking actually pollutes the air enormously. There is a woman I interviewed last week who has frack fluids, these carcinogenic chemicals and neurotoxins in her lungs, simply from just living around this area. And the gas development is enormously polluting for the air as well. So the climate is gone comment. It's probably a Freudian slip, but if we continue to produce natural gas in this way, the myth of clean burning natural gas is just that. This would be the very, very wrong direction for America to head in, and this is what natural gas is doing. They're competing with renewable energy for America's energy future and for the world's energy future.
Oh, it'll be fine as long as we find an alternative to water in our bodies. Josh Fox, the director of the documentary Gasland. It's a remarkable piece of work.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.